Well, then, that escalated quickly. About a year and a half ago, when I decided to delve into the portrait photography world from a professional perspective, I had to do a lot of thinking, a lot of reflecting. And previous to that, for about 3 years, I was doing event photography. And I found that people didn't value the event work I was doing the way I did. I viewed it as the people are in this room for celebratory reasons, and I'm so honored to be here to capture that energy in these moments. But then people weren't paying me for my enthusiasm in the way that I was enthusiastic about their moments and memories, right? So I wanted to move over to something equally or more fulfilling, but also more financially fruitful, let's say. So yeah, portrait photography is where I landed. And during that time, I was knee deep into experimenting with AI and prompting and all that good stuff. And I've had this thought in my mind, what this is so good and getting better. Could this replace me as a photographer at at any point in my endeavor? And it's always been in the back of my mind. And fast forward a year now, a year and a half later, where I have a decent portfolio. I'm still working through a lot. I'm still working to find myself as a photographer, and then find myself as a business, because those two are quite different. Um, I'm revisiting that thought process, those fears, that anxiety, and a lot of what's happening now with Evoto AI and that their headshot generation tool is like dragging it to the forefront. And what I can share is, in the maturity of having a successful portrait business for the last year and change, I am a little less bothered, or let's say it this way, the reality of what this product, Evoto, and other products like it, and the business around it in general mean, doesn't really upset me as much. And what I'm trying to say here is, we as photographers get sidetracked, and we find the wrong things to identify as. For instance, I am not my gear. I am not my camera. I am not my lens. I'm not the type of lighting I use. I am not the editing tool I use. I'm not the AI I use to edit my photos. I am the creative person behind the lens that values what I see. And I know how to translate that using tools, right? And I had to remind myself of that. And then that even goes a step further. I had to remind myself that my client, sure, you can't ignore it. You can't ignore headshot, AI headshot stuff, like you can't ignore Google, or you can't ignore it's just a part of our society, right? It's a tool that's so easy for people to use. People, I remember, I'm old enough, right? I'm 20 plus years into an IT career. And I remember when people's emails didn't make no damn sense. People couldn't spell. Their grammar was terrible. And then Microsoft did us all a favor. First, it was Apple. They had OS wide spell check. Mind blown. And then Microsoft was like, all right, we're going to we're going to put it in Outlook, and then we're going to put it in Windows. And now it's in a browser. Now it's on our phone. And now all of a sudden, everyone knows how to spell words like neighborhood, ambiguity, all these lasagna, right? And so I hope you're grasping my point. People still had poor grammar. And then when you meet with people in person, they still couldn't communicate. And it's, the tools evolve is my point. And I never once had the perspective of sitting back and reading someone's email like, I know this person in real life. And I know they don't have the sophistication or the level of sophistication to put together their chain of thoughts this way when I speak to them. So I'm not entirely upset that that person mind dumps in an email and then hits the Copilot or Google button, use AI to fix my email. Why? The point is what they're trying to get across. The point is the communication. And I know my client values the point. What I'm saying is, I'm saying a lot. What I'm saying is, my client is a certain type of person that values how they show up in the world. My client is a certain type of person that is going to have a business coach. They're going to have a life coach. They're going to have a therapist. They understand that the world that we live in is so dense. It's so much. You can't possibly have it all together, all for yourself. And so my expertise is not the camera. My expertise is not the lens. It's not an octabox. It's not Photoshop. It's not Evoto AI. It's not the final output of all of those things culminated together that this pretty image that I'm showing them. My expertise is I'm going to sit with you. I'm going to understand your goals, your aspirations. I'm going to understand the promotion that you've got coming up. I'm going to understand the business and the team that you lead. And then I'm going to understand the reason you lead them, the way you want to lead them, and how you want them to see you when they see a photo of you. And I'm going to coach you to make sure that you're coming across as that person in front of my camera. And then all of those procedures come together. All of those tools come together. And that then gives me the final output. Could my client go into Chat GPT and drop a photo, a selfie in, and achieve something very similar? Yes. But what my client can't do is have a trusted resource, a partner, someone that's also really invested in this journey and add real value to it. And it took a lot to remind myself of that. And I know Evoto AI is the first Indian over the hill, and I get it. And even that in itself is a very interesting conversation because, let's be honest, they're leveraging third-party tools. They're leveraging third-party APIs that Google already built. And if you're not mad at Google, then why, pray tell, are you mad at Evoto? I get it, they're the ones in front of you, but it's much bigger than that. And if it wasn't Evoto, I guarantee you it would have been Adobe. But maybe Adobe is a little more, maybe they're a little more in tune to photographers. They would never cut their own throat like that. But there's a bunch of smaller companies that's gnawing at the heels of Adobe for our business. And they know that we as photographers can't stand Adobe for various reasons. But nonetheless, I say I understand both sides of it, but I did myself the favor of sitting back and removing myself from the nuances of the fight and the aggravation and the hurt and the betrayal, and just putting context around why I do this. I don't do this to sell pretty photos. I do this to understand people and help them achieve their goals. That's why I charge what I charge. That's why I communicate the way I communicate. That's why when it's like, ooh, well, that's kind of dope. Maybe I should drop my headshot in AI headshot generate, because it's a pain in the ass for me to sit here and set up the backdrop and do what I do for my clients and figure out a way to remotely trigger and then pose myself like, I ain't got it for me, fam. It's a tool I probably would use, ironically enough. Maybe somebody's gonna crucify me in the comments, but it's just real. And what really, I don't think me as a portrait photographer is in the line of sight of what AI means in the way we're conversating about Evoto AI. And I think there are a few other genres of photography where the same is true. You look at event photography, wedding photography, it's all about people in the room capturing the vibe and the energy. And it's sort of like you had to be there. And then you got those moments from when someone was there as a fly on the wall and captured it. And every time you see these photos, you can relive it. I don't see a world where you can just take Aunt Sally's terrible photos with the smudge on the camera, her iPhone photos, and blurry, and drop it in, and you come with your super prompt engineering. I need you to recreate my wedding day for, like, I don't, maybe I'll be eating my words in 5-10 years. I don't know. Um journalists and photojournalism, you gotta be there. You Photography is such an important part of our history, and I really respect photojournalists. And everyone's running away from the fire and they're running towards the fire. And that's something that no machine can replace. But in all fairness, stock photographers, oof. Oof, it's looking bad, and I'm sure there are other genres of photography out there that's very, very, very threatened in a real way by the AI stuff, just like retouchers, just like designers, just like copywriters, just like bloggers. Yeah, it's a tough place. And if you want to channel your anger at someone, I think it's best spent channeling that energy to learn about what AI is as a whole, and really who's spending the billions of dollars to develop LLMs. And let's start attacking them. You know what I mean? Let's start raising a flag. You can't tell me you love how much when you go on Google, you can drop any number of words that don't make sense and the machine makes sense of it and gives you all these intelligent answers. That's the same AI that you're hating in your business. Let's start to recalibrate how we look at this. The audacity of me as a photographer, to get upset that Evoto's headshot generation tool is coming for me, but it already came for retouchers. And it's wild that I don't know any retouchers to have this conversation with, which goes to the arrogance, the hubris. It's I when it replaced them, but it's not all right when it's about to replace me. I hold myself to a higher standard and fairness, and I try in all things that I do and strive for that balance. And I hope we as a community can adopt the same, right? And really take this opportunity of the hairs on the back of your neck that you're feeling, and that raw anxiety and fear. Take this opportunity to channel that energy into, well, what is it I'm really doing here? And if your job was to sell pretty photos, you're in trouble. And as an enthusiast, as someone that's very, very new to the portrait world, I would like to share the perspective with you that don't sell yourself short. Pretty photos is not who you are as a photographer. Dig a little deeper. Find your balance, find your reason, find your purpose, find your value, and then find your customer. And no tool will ever be able to replace you. Time is the most valuable resource that we have, and I do not take it lightly that you've shared some of yours here with me today. Thank you so much for that. Like the video if you like it, subscribe, leave a comment below. And my name is Ramon. I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.